In this video, I'm going to go over some examples of for loops. The first one starts with declaring a variable as an integer x and assign 0 to it. And then the for loop is going to have the three clauses that we've discussed before. The initialization one that sets y to 1. And then the condition, which is y is less than 4, and then the incrementation step, which will be just adding 1 to it. So we're going to go through the different steps with the different values to determine exactly how these for loops go. So I've already set up the initial values for x and y. The condition is to check, so that's our next step in the for loop. If y is less than 4, that evaluates to true. Then we get inside of the body of the loop and evaluate the new x by doing x plus y, which would be 1. And then the new y would be evaluated by doing the y plus plus. So that'll give us 2 for y. So I'm going to bring back those values for the next iteration of the loop. Now we check the condition. 2 is less than 4, that evaluates to true. The new x will be 1 plus 2, which is going to be 3. And then the new y will be 2 plus plus, which becomes 3. I'm going to bring up these values here. Now x and y are both 3. Sorry about that. 3 less than 4, that evaluates to true again. Then I do the evaluation, x is x plus y, so that'll be 3 plus 3, which is 6. And then y goes through the incrementation step and becomes 4. So I'm bringing back these values here, 6 and 4. 4 is less than 4, evaluates to false. So I no longer execute the steps within the loop here. So you notice the loop went through 1, 2, 3 times. And then at the end, the value of x is 6. Now, we don't really have an end value for y because y does not exist outside of the for loop. But on the last iteration, the value of y was 4. So that's it for this example. We move on to the next example. In this loop, x is beginning with a value of 0. X is not our iteration variable. Y begins at 0. And then we have the steps for the condition. If the condition is true, the body of the loop executes, otherwise not. And then once the body of the loop is executed, we do the incrementation steps. So that's kind of like what I represented in this chart. Here, y less than 10 is set. That will be true. My new x, well, x takes the value of y, so yx will be 0. And the new y will become 1. So I copy those values over for the next iteration. 1 is less than or equal to 10, that's true. X becomes 1 because y, it takes the value of y, and then y becomes 2. So now the values are 1 and 2. 2 is less than or equal to 10, evaluates to true. So now x is 2 and y is incremented to 3. The new values are 2 and 3 for x and y. 3 is still less than or equal to 10. So the new x will become 3 and the new y will be 4. 3 and 4, the new values. 4 is less than or equal to 10, that evaluates to true. So my new x will be 4 since it's the value of y, and y, it gets incremented by 1. So 4 and 5 are my new values. 5 is still less than or equal to 10. Now x becomes 5 and y becomes 6. So I copy these values over for the new values. 6 is still less than or equal to 10. My x becomes the value of y, which is 6, and then y gets incremented to 7. So 6 and 7 are my new values. 7 is still less than or equal to 10. X takes the value of y and becomes 7. Y is incremented by 1 and becomes 8. So these are my new values, 7 and 8 for the new iteration. 8 is still less than or equal to 10. Now x becomes y, which is 8, and y gets incremented by 1, which is 9. My new values are 8 for x, 9 for y. 9 is still less than or equal to 10. So x becomes the value of y, which is 9, and then y is incremented by 1, so it becomes 10. So 9 and 10 are my new values. 10 is still less than or equal to 10. The new value of x will be 10, and the new value for y will be 11. So 10 and 11 are my new values. However, 10, y is less than or equal to 10 evaluates to false, and I do not execute the rest of the loop. So the loop iterated really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11 times total from 0 to 10, which makes sense. At the end, the value of x is 10. Now, on the last iteration, after the incrementation step, y is 11. But remember, y does not exist outside of the for loop. So that's it for this example. Our next example with the for loop, start with x at 0. And then the iteration variable y begins at 0 as well. So I check, remember in the steps, I check the condition before executing the body of the loop, and y is less than 4 evaluates to true. So then I execute the body of the loop, and x is x plus y, so 0 plus 0 gives me 0 for x, and the new y is the incrementation step, so it becomes 1. If I carry it over, it becomes 0 and 1 for the values of the new x and the new y. 1 is less than 4, that evaluates to true. Now x becomes x plus y, which is 0 plus 1, which is 1. And then we do the incrementation step where y becomes y plus plus, so y becomes 2. Our new values are 1 and 2. 2 is less than 4, that evaluates to true. So now x becomes 2 plus 1, which is 3. And then y is incremented by 1. So it'll become 3 as well. Next are my values copied over here for the new x and the new y. Y is less than 4 is still true, since y is 3. Then I increment the x, or I add the 3 for the x and the 3 for the y to get the new x, which is 6. And then y is incremented by 1, so it goes from 3 to 4. So my new values are 6 and 4. And then y is less than 4 evaluates to false, and that's my last iteration. So if I count, I iterated through the for loop 1, 2, 3, 4 times. And then at the end, the value of x was 6. Y, remember, on the last iteration, at the incrementation step, was set to 4. But remember, the value of y does not exist outside of the for loop. That's it for this example. Let's take a look at a new example here. So I'm going to do the for loop, and then we'll discuss the last statement here on this loop. We're going to begin with x is 0 and y is also 0. The condition is the same, and that's pretty much the same example. Y is less than 4, that evaluates to true. X becomes x plus y, which is 0, and then y is incremented. Next values are going to be 0 and 1. 1 is less than 4. The new x is going to be 1 because 0 plus 1 is 1. And then 1 plus plus is becoming 2. So my new values are 1 and 2. This still evaluates to true. X plus y is now 3. And y plus plus becomes 3 as well. So these are my new values for the next iteration. The condition still evaluates to true. X plus y is 6, and then y plus plus is 4. So my new values are 6 and 4. This evaluates to false, sorry. And therefore, we no longer iterate through the loop, and that's where we stop. The last statement here, so we still have 4 iterations of the loop. At the end, the value of x is 6. If I try to print y at the end of the loop, this gives me an error. And then it's a compile time error. And if you remember, y does not exist outside of the for loop. I guess I should make my box a little bit bigger here. So I cannot access the value of y outside of the for loop. So it does not have a value here when I try to access this outside of the for loop. That's it for this example. Let's take a look at one more example here. That'll be our last one for this. So we have x is set up to 0 at the beginning, which I've already marked. And then y is marked as 5 at the beginning, or initialized at 5. Our condition is in the next step, where we're checking if y is greater than 0, which that's true. 5 is greater than 0. The new x, then we go into the body of the loop. The new x will be x plus plus, which means it goes up to 1. And then y is the incrementation step. That's the next step in the iteration of the loop. And y is decremented by 1, so it drops down to 4. So my new values are 1 and 4. 4 is still greater than 0, so that evaluates to true. The new x will be x plus plus, which means it goes up by 1. And then y is decremented by 1. So it drops down to 3. So our next step again is to go back through the loop. The first step in the loop is going to be checking the condition. Is 3 greater than 0? That evaluates to true. Then we execute the body of the loop where x is incremented by 1 and becomes 3. And then we do the incrementation step, which in this case is actually a decrementation step, and y comes down to 2. I'll copy over those values. 2 is still greater than 0, so that evaluates to true. Therefore, I execute the loop. The body of the loop increments x by 1, so now x is 4. And then decrements, we have the decrementation step, which brings y to 1. And we repeat the loop one more time by checking the condition. Is 1 greater than 0? That evaluates to true. Therefore, x is incremented by 1, bringing it up to 5. And then y is decremented by 1 with the incrementation step and becomes 0. So my new values are 5 for x and 0 for y. Well, 0 is not greater than 0, so that evaluates to false, and therefore my loop ends. Note that at the end of the loop, if I'm still within the loop and y still exists, its value is 0. However, I cannot access it outside of the loop. Remember, y does not exist outside of this for loop. And the value of x will be 5. 5 will still exist because it was declared outside of the for loop. And I iterated through the loop 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 times. This concludes our example of for loops. Thank you for watching.